My position on the Rattler was editor-in-chief, so I had the responsibility of running the publication on campus. The Rattler is important because we're able to deliver stories to the community. I think it's really special to be a part of the Rattler also because of the stories you hear and the people that you get to interview. You just kind of have this connection with them.
My relationship with the Rattler began when the Dean of Students asked me if I'd be interested in taking on the editor-in-chief role. That was because the paper had been shut down. There had been some problems where the staff and the administration did not see eye to eye. I really felt like they could find someone more qualified, I thought, than a freshman who was coming in, because I joked I couldn't even find the bathrooms. So I'm not going to be able to run a newspaper. They suggested that I take the offer, and so we put together kind of a hybrid staff of older staffers and younger staffers. I think if you talk to anyone about their time on the Rattler, there's a very deep intimacy you create amongst one another. And so I think that for me, that was the biggest takeaway, was learning how to forge relationships over time.
I was my elementary, high school, and then college editor of the student newspaper, and it was a natural progression. When I attended St. Mary's, my first English teacher was Brother Arthur Gert, and Brother Gert was the then advisor to the Rattler, and was, like any good advisor, encouraging students to join the staff. So I joined the staff and watched what was going on and thought maybe I could be helpful, and I stayed with it. And then in 1970, my junior year, I became the editor-in-chief.
Well, I came to St. Mary's in 1968, one of the few women at the university at the time, and I was an English major. So I love to read, and I love to write. So the Rattler was it just seemed like a natural place for me. I started as a staff writer, and then I became one of the 2 feature editors, and eventually the managing editor.
I first got involved with the Rattler at the beginning of my freshman year in 1979. I simply walked up the stairs of the student center and walked into the Rattler office. And the editor was Charles Gallatin. He was sitting at a big desk as you came in the door, and I walked up to him and told him I had been a reporter on my high school newspaper, and I'd also edited my high school newspaper. And I really wanted to work as a reporter. Could I get a job as a reporter? And he said, sure. And then I think, as I recall, he gave me an assignment right away. I just don't remember what it was. It was probably a rewrite or something like that. When I was editor-in-chief of the Rattler, I basically lived in the Rattler office, as did just about everybody else who worked on the staff. Sometimes we would just fall asleep there. Plenty of times I saw people napping. We had a big, ugly sofa in the office, and people would crash there. I don't think things have changed much in that regard, but it was basically my second home other than the dorm room.
There are several inside jokes we have because it gets so late at night that you're somewhat delirious. So there were times that we would laugh about something that made no sense. And so if I see certain like cartoon characters or like toys at the store, I remember like we would sometimes bring in like a stupid toy to play with to kind of take our mind out of that zone. One time we bought a box of wigs and we all put on wigs that's just to match our personality. I think people were like, what are those weird kids doing laughing in that room with all these stupid wigs on?
So I'd have to say the most rewarding part about it was the lifelong friendships that you make with these people. As a matter of fact, we still are in contact with several of them, even after 47 years. For example, I'm still in contact with my former co-features editor and managing editor. She still manages the editor, Diane Abdo.
We had a good family in the Rattler office. We had fun. And we also took our job seriously. And I think we made some impression on the campus because the students actually did read the newspaper. But we also knew how to have fun, and we knew how to create a community, which we did.
I remember it as happy and joyous and a huge learning experience. I'll tell you, as a person who went on to a newspaper career and in public relations, I walked out of St. Mary's with a fantastic clipbook from what I did at the Rattler. And I'm not saying none of it was, Pulitzer Prize winning material, but it was a wide range of sports copy and editorial copy. Huge amounts of my ability as a writer were honed and polished working at the Rattler?
Okay, so the 100th anniversary is very special because I think it's a time for everyone who's been on staff to kind of remember like where they came from. I think it's also a chance for us to be able to look at the work of the Rattler and just be reassured that like our hard work paid off, but it's also continuing.
For me, the Rattler lasting 100 years is amazing because you think about how many things last 100 years, right? When you go back and realize that now women of color lead the staff when just 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, they weren't even allowed to be students. And so that the campus has kind of changed with those times and grappled with how to adapt to them, I think is really important that it's noted the Rattler had been covering that all this time, right?
Well, I'm glad the Rattler is still around because I think it's very important for students to have the freedom to write about issues on campus. No one's going to cover the campus like the student newspaper. And so it's so valuable. The Rattler is the voice of the student body and St. Mary's is the students. So that's important.
The fact that the Rattler is celebrating its centennial, 100 years of existence, is proof that it matters to St. Mary's and that it has worth. It's just such a beautiful thing on every level, and I think everyone who's been associated with this newspaper should be proud that it is a legacy, and it's a legacy that's going to continue.